This is Scraps from GriffinMods, and this is the new NERF Elite Hail-Fire. This is the flagship blaster in the Elite line. It's also the new highest capacity blaster with the potential to carry up to 144 rounds. Now, to get that 144 rounds, what it's going to take is 8 of the 18 round stick magazines. But instead of sending you those, they send you 4 6-round magazines and 24 elite darts. Now, if you want, you can spend an extra $20 and go out and get another 4 of these in the Hail-Fire mission kit, as well as another 24 darts, giving you 8 6-round mags and 48 darts. But that's just silly, because why would you carry a big blaster like this with only 48 rounds when you could just put a Raider drum in something and have almost that much ammunition? So really the only way that makes sense to carry this is with its full complement of 8 of the 18 round mags. And we'll take a look at exactly what that looks like here in a little bit. First I want to talk about the aesthetics. This blaster definitely looks a lot cooler in person than it does in videos or on the outside of the box even. Interestingly enough, the front of the blaster here very much resembles the front gun from a long shot, especially in this area right here, where you can see the orange coming through the middle, and it's got these kind of almost clasp looking things that are on the shell. It also has these 2 big wings on the side that cover the Lazy Susan. They've got arrows on it that show you which way it rotates when you advance it with the advancing handle, which is right here. The back grip is a pistol style grip, and it's actually very, very comfortable. So the way that you're supposed to hold this is essentially the same way that you would hold a Vulcan cannon. I really don't understand why they made something the highest capacity blaster in terms of ammunition and didn't make it full auto. But hopefully this will have some other advantages to it that'll make up from that. We'll see in just a minute here. This is the battery tray right here. It screws out with 2 Phillips head screws, and it runs on 4 AA batteries, which is much better than the multitude of gigantic batteries that it takes to operate a Vulcan or a Stampede. So it's really much lighter. There's attachment points on either side here at the top for you to sling the blaster, as well as one here on the bottom, so I guess it's good for righties and lefties, so that's pretty cool. If you look on the inside here, this is the Lazy Susan mechanism itself that turns. Now when I move the advancing handle, you have to move it forward and back to get it to turn, and it looks pretty solid right now. However, when you put some weight on it, it does tend to slip. I'll put my finger in the way right here and move it, and you can see it's not hard at all for my finger to hold it still, so that could potentially cause some problems if we're going to load this thing up all the way with the 8 18-round mags, or if you wanted to put like some Raider drums or something on here too. But we'll take a look and we'll see how that looks here in a little bit. The mechanism that moves this Lazy Susan seems to be very, very similar to the one that moves the turret in a Maverick. And any of you that have messed around with Mavericks before, I'm sure know that the turret on that thing slips a lot, so that's potentially a big problem area with this blaster. One of the things that's really cool about it, however, is this gigantic clear jam door. And if I put one of these 6-round mags in here, and you can see that where you put it in is different than the mag wells and any other of the NERF blasters, because it only attaches from the back. Here it says darts are facing out, which means, of course, when you put them in, you always want to put them in with the darts facing out, and they just slide in pretty easily. There's also a little lip right here that holds the different magazines in place. This is how it looks rotating through the blaster, and you can see that it slips just like the turret on a Maverick, and that's just with one magazine, and there it actually skipped one. However, it does seem to hold them in place once it settles and in line pretty well with where they're going. Here you can see that it has this awesome clear jam door, and that's actually why I put this in there in the first place, was you can see very clearly through the jam door if you have a full or empty magazine and which one you're set up to fire on. I think I just passed the magazine again, but that's okay. There's a green indicator here on either side of the jam door that allows you to see very easily whether it's closed all the way, open and closed. And one of the other cool things about this is it has a very beefy dart pusher. Now there's locks on this blaster. I have the jam door open right here. You can see that while the jam door is open, the accelerator trigger does nothing, and while the motor's not running, you can't pull the trigger and engage the dart pusher either. However, once the jam door is closed, you still can't push the trigger unless the accelerator trigger is pushed down. There is, however, a sweet spot. If you open the jam door just a little bit, it'll allow you to pull the accelerator trigger without engaging the motor because the safety's engaged, and still pull the trigger and operate the dart pusher. So you can see right there that it has this massive dart pusher, which is really cool, and it seems to almost have an assisted trigger pull, which is very awesome. There's little to no effort whatsoever to pull the trigger and engage the dart pusher, which means that you can operate this blaster very, very quickly, which makes up for a lot of the lack of full auto because you can fire it just as quickly as you can pull a trigger, as long as you don't run into issues with the advancing handle here. Now, since I mentioned the dart pusher, let's take a closer look at that real quick. It's quite different than a lot of the other dart pushers that they've used in that there is a big triangle. I don't know how well you can see it in the camera here, but it comes down off of the dart pusher, and that's what actually pushes the dart in itself. That big piece you saw from the top doesn't actually touch the dart. It's just that little triangle that comes down. And there's a nice big funnel right there where it feeds in the dart into the flywheels in the front of the blaster. And something else that's very interesting to note about the Hail-Fire is it has a dart tooth. There you should be able to see it in the camera, which there is no conceivable reason, at least that I can think of, to put a dart tooth in a flywheel blaster. I cannot think of any kind of performance benefit or even safety that dart tooth would provide. There's nothing that holds the dart tooth in place other than a small spring. If I stick my finger in here, I'll try to do it on camera, I can actually push down the dart tooth with my finger. So as the dart moves forward, it pushes that dart tooth out of the way before it catches the flywheel. Now, the only reason that I can even fathom for them to put a dart tooth like that in this blaster is to prevent you from firing Steffens or any type of shorter dart, because if you've got that kind of dart in there, the dart pusher, normally inertia would be able to carry the dart far enough forward to catch the flywheels if you were using a shortened dart or a Steffen. However, with that door in the way, that would prevent you from using shorter darts in this blaster. Even if you were to do double load Steffen darts, one behind the other, it would fire the first one out, but the other one wouldn't be able to move, and you'd kind of jam up after that. So that's really the only reason I can think to put that tooth in there. And if I do a full modification video on this, that'll definitely be something that's coming out. So I think that's it for the most part on the externals of this blaster. So we're going to talk about ammo capacity and what it looks loaded up with different kinds of clips. So I'll be right back with that. So here's the Hail-Fire with a full complement of 8 6-round mags, as if you were to use the ones that came with it as well as purchasing the mission kit. So that gives it a total ammo capacity of 48 rounds. It definitely looks a lot cooler with all 8 of the magazines in there. It adds a little bit of weight. It's not too much, but it would definitely be uncomfortable to try to one-hand wield at this point. So you throw your other hand here on top on the advancing handle, and as I pull it back and forth here, you can see it definitely does not operate as smoothly with all 8 of the magazines on there. As a matter of fact, if I do it too fast, you can see it tends to skip. So you have to be very slow and authoritative in the way that you turn it. And you also have to keep it almost completely level, which is a definite drawback to this blaster. However, if the ranges are good and the rate of fire is good, it might make up for it when you use the larger magazines, which is what we're going to test out next. Okay guys, so this is what the Hail-Fire looks like, chocked full of Raider drums. And the only way I can think to describe it is it's like putting monster trucks on a Volkswagen Bug. It is absolutely ridiculous. This thing is huge. It looks like it has tires on it. It's very, very awkward and cumbersome. Now I only have 3 and not the full complement of 4 potential Raider drums on here because I couldn't find my 4th one. But what I really wanted to point out in this setup is that you can see from the clearances here that in between the Raider drums you cannot fit any of the 6-round magazines in between. There's not enough clearance. If you wanted to shave things down and do mini clips and go through all that trouble, you probably could, but it's really not worth it. So I hope this answers some of the questions about the maximum ammo capacity. I also tested it with the teardrop magazines, and you have the same clearance issues. It seems to have been designed so that you can't put additional magazines in between when you use drums. So even if you're running this with 4 Raider drums, that only gives you a maximum ammo capacity of 140 rounds, and that's not the 144. And it's also much heavier. This thing doesn't even have darts in it, and it is ridiculous. And it's also very hard to advance. You have to do nice and slow and steady, and you have to hold it completely level. There you can see it's turning now, and it's wobbling back and forth, and it's just crazy. So that's it for the Raider drums. Again, you'll have the same clearance issues with the teardrop 25-round drums and probably the little 18s as well. So now I'm going to put in the only clip set that'll make sense and fill it up with 18-round mags. So I've loaded the Hail-Fire up with the maximum ammo capacity of 8 of the 18-round stick mags. Now it's heavy, but nowhere near as heavy as it was with the drums. It's also quite bulky. It's very tall. It's not quite as bulky and awkward as the drums, but it's still definitely huge. It's like it's on stilts. I mean, it's gigantic. I can't even fit the size of this thing in the camera frame. To give you some idea of the length of it with all of these magazines, there's my arm. And you can see that the total length of the blaster is longer than my forearm, which is pretty crazy. It definitely rotates a lot better than it did with the drum mags. You can see here it's rotating. And strangely enough, I've noticed that it actually, with the stick mags in there, rotates better when you hold it at a slight angle, which is very curious. So this is what it looks like with the maximum 144 round capacity. Before we do the firing test, I'm going to take these things out because I'd like to be able to fit it in frame for the fire test. But yeah, that's what it looks like. So before we get to the firing test, I wanted to show you guys this. This is the 12-round clip from the Retaliator. Optimally, I think this is probably the perfect clip to use with the Hail-Fire. It's just the right balance of size versus ammo capacity. You can see here it makes the profile and the weight of the Hail-Fire significantly smaller, yet it would still allow you to carry 104 rounds, which is well over the previous record of 35 rounds in a Raider drum. So optimally, I think if you could somehow find 8 of these, it would be the perfect balance of size to ammo capacity. The problem is that unfortunately you can only get them with the Retaliator. Hopefully in the future we'll see a bunch of them pop up on eBay, but until then I think we're going to be stuck with using the 18s. Something else I wanted to take a look at before we do the actual fire test is the comparison of the motors for the flywheels between the Hail-Fire here and a Raven. So I'm going to go ahead and rev up this Raven so you can hear how long it takes to rev up and also what the motor sounds like. So you can see there, it takes probably 3 or 4 seconds for the motor to rev up. This is a bone stock Raven, and it's also not very loud. So this is the motor on the Hail-Fire. You can hear it definitely revs up a lot more quickly, and it's definitely got more power behind it. I don't know how well that'll translate to the video, but it's definitely a noticeable difference between the two. So for the range test, I'm going to be using the maximum loadout capacity of 144 rounds with 8 of the 18-round magazines, and that's just to show you kind of how huge it is. Also, the Lazy Susan with this amount of weight has a lot of trouble turning. You have to be very slow and authoritative, and it still skips sometimes. So there we've got it in place. You can see through the clear jam door in the top. For the level shots, I'm going to be holding it at about shoulder height. That way there's a comparison to some of the other range tests. However, for the angled shots, I'm going to be holding it down at my hip and angling it up like you would do if you were actually using it. So for the level shots, and then the angled shots, Now, it's interesting to note that because I don't have all of the magazines loaded, it threw off the weight enough that it actually wouldn't feed the darts through. It dragged down the front end a little bit and messed up the alignment. So potentially, if you had this thing fully loaded up and you were running through all the darts and you had some of the magazines empty and some of them full, it could potentially cause jam issues, which seems to be another design flaw with this blaster, which is very, very interesting. So let's go take a look at these ranges. Now it looks like the first of the level shots we have here at 37 feet. I've got another level shot here at 41 feet. Here's 45 feet, and we've got 1, 2 more darts, and 47 feet. We've got 2 more, and I think that's it for the level shots, so approximately 45 feet on average for the level shots. The angled shots, and these are a little bit more scattered. I've got the first one here at 63 feet. There's another one out to the side at the same length. Here at 66 feet, I've got 1, 2 more darts. Here's 70 feet, 1, 2 more darts there. And then I've got about a grouping of about 4 darts here to the left of the tape between 74 and 75 feet. There's all of those. And then I've got 1 more dart here at 82 feet. So it definitely hits the 75-foot ranges. I would say the accuracy is a little bit of an issue, and it's very finicky. There's one more range test I want to do for you here real quick, so I'll be right back with that. So for this final range test, I've gone ahead and removed all the extra magazines except for the one we're using and one in the back to balance it out. And the purpose of this is to see how the blaster responds to successive rapid fire, because to me that's really the key of having a highest capacity blaster, is being able to unload a lot of ammo. And if the flywheels can't keep up with the rate of fire, then that would be a serious issue. So I'm going to do angled shots from the hip. So there you can see we still have balance and alignment issues when running at a heavy angle, so I guess fundamentally you just can't angle this blaster too much. It seemed like from back here at least that the shots were definitely dropping off towards the end of that chain of fire. They were fairly straight though, which is a good thing. So it looks like we've got our short shot here at 43 feet from the tail end of that stream of fire. And 47 feet, we've got 1 more dart, and you can see it's almost like a straight row where you can see the fire range decreasing as the shots went on successfully. You could almost see the wheels slowing down. Here's 50 feet, we've got 1 more dart, and then I've got a group of about 4 here around 53 feet. And then I've got 56 feet, here's 2 more darts. And then I've got a close grouping of 3 more darts here at 59 feet. I've got another grouping at 62 feet of 1, 2, 3, 4 more darts. And then I have the first dart that I fired out here almost exactly at 75 feet, which is kind of cool. So honestly, I expected the flywheels to slow down a little bit more than that with the successive fire. They kept up better than I thought they would. And all in all, it's kind of a finicky blaster, but I bet it would probably do really well with the voltage mod. So that's it for now, and thanks for watching.